of artists called Works on Water that we've been collaborating with for the past couple of years. They do some really awesome work. So please enjoy this meditative journey along the north shore of Staten Island while we wait for a few more folks to join us. And we get started today talking about the draft goals and strategies for the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, primarily listening to your feedback and what you have to say and what you think about it. So yeah, please enjoy the video. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Chris. I'm on the Waterfront and Open Space team at the Department of City Planning. And we're so excited to talk to you about the draft goals and strategies for the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan today. We're looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, but before we begin with a brief presentation, please enjoy this short video called A Wave Like Me by artist Tat Fu Tan. So Tat Fu is a artist at the collective Works on Waters, who we've been working with for the past couple of years. And so this video will take you on a meditative journey along the north shore of Staten Island. So please enjoy as we wait for a few more people to join the meeting tonight. And we'll just get started in a few minutes. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function, which you should have available here in Zoom, and enjoy. All right, everyone. Thank you again for joining us tonight as we talk about the draft goals and strategies for the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan. We really hope you enjoyed that short video, A Wave Like Me, featuring the Staten Island North Shore waterfront. So we're just gonna begin with a short presentation tonight. So first, we're just gonna go over a run of show of what we're doing today. Then we're gonna have a brief presentation on the draft goals and strategies. But the focus of tonight is really going to be hearing from all of you on what you think of the draft goals and strategies of the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, what you like about it, and just your sort of general thoughts on it. For this first portion of tonight's event, you are not going to be able to unmute yourself, so everyone's going to be muted. However, once it is time for you to share your comments and share your feedback, you will have the ability to turn on your mic and turn on your video. And of course, we encourage you to turn on your video and kind of share with us tonight, all of your ideas and your thoughts. If you are dialing in by phone tonight, please press **9 in order to raise your hand. And by raising your hand, you'll be able to enter the queue for us to call on you, and you can share your comments live. If you're also calling in tonight, keep in mind that *6 is to mute and unmute yourself, and *9 is to raise your hand and to lower your hand again. And again, if you have any questions for this first portion of tonight or comments, please use the Q&A function, which you should have in the toolbar here on Zoom. So here's a screenshot kind of going over some of what we were just talking about. But once you are ready to speak and share your comments, you'll be able to turn on your microphone, turn on your video. Right now, you should be able to ask questions using the Q&A. And if you have any questions or you want to share, please use the raise hand feature. I also wanted to just flag here this help hotline. So if you're having any technical difficulties tonight, you can't hear, can't see the screen or anything like that, please give us a call here at this number, 877-853-5247. Again, that's 877-853-5247. Enter the meeting ID and the password here on the screen, and we'll be able to assist you as quickly as possible. So we're going to go ahead and get started now. The first part of the presentation is going to be by Michael Morella. And so let's get started.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Morella. I'm the Director of Waterfront and Open Space Planning at the Department of City Planning. Chris, can you give me a thumbs up to make sure that you can hear and see me? You're on mute. So.
We can hear and see you.
I can hear and see you.
Okay, I just want to confirm. As Chris said, I'm the Director of Waterfront and Open Space Planning at the Department of City Planning. The great privilege of leading the team that's working to write the next comprehensive waterfront plan. And the intent of the plan is to take a step back from what we do on a regular basis at the Department of City Planning and as part of the city government, and determine where we need to go for the next 10 years and beyond. And the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan is that moment where we get to chart a course for the next decade for all 520 miles of the city's waterfront. Next slide, please, Chris. It's with the recognition that our waterfront is incredibly diverse, and that with that diversity, there are a wide range of issues and ultimately will require different strategies. And that diversity is reflected in the environment along our waterfront, from the wetland marshes along Alley Pond Creek in Queens to the dense urban environment in Lower Manhattan, the cruise terminal in Red Hook, the low-scale bungalows in the Rockaways, or the rapidly developing neighborhood of Greenpoint in Williamsburg. All of that and so much more is what is our waterfront of New York City. And again, that diversity requires a wide range of strategies. Next slide, please. To help craft the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan has been an extensive public planning and public engagement process that has been going on since the summer of 2019, so for roughly 2 years. We started with the visioning phase that was asking the public what they wanted to see along their waterfront for the next 10 years. And that was really meeting the public out on the waterfront, going to tabling events and communities with a number of partnering organizations, and speaking to New Yorkers of all ages. In the fall and winter of 2019 and the winter of 2020, we held listening sessions on topic-based and held internal and external briefings. In the spring of last year, we switched, of course, to virtual engagement. And in the fall of 2020, we released the draft the draft of the framework. And now, just a few weeks ago, we released the draft goals and strategies. And this summer, we plan to release the plan. But before releasing that plan, we want to hear from all of you about your comments on the draft goals and strategies. And that's the intent for this evening. So after my brief presentation, we'll open the floor to your comments. And we'll talk more about how we're going to run through that in just a little bit. Next slide, please. So along the way, and as I said, we have been really focusing so much of our effort on the public outreach and public engagement. And we've been documenting all that we have heard, as will be doing tonight as well. But some of the things that we have heard thus far is that the comprehensive waterfront plan is a great opportunity to articulate a new ambitious vision for the city's waterfront, and that there's a desire to carry the beacons of equity, resiliency, and health throughout the plan in plain language and intent, to be as specific as possible in articulating the goals. And it's an opportunity to increase public awareness and education on a range of waterfront topics, including climate resiliency, ecology, public access, water quality, and water safety. Next slide, please. So let me talk a little bit about the document that we released just a couple of weeks ago, the draft goals and strategies. That is really the focus of tonight's session. Next slide, please. The goals and strategies were organized under 6 themes: climate resiliency and adaptation, waterfront public access, economic opportunity, the working waterfront, water quality and natural resources, and ferries. Next slide, please. Now I'll walk through each of these topic areas, talk a little bit about these topics as a whole, and then walk through the high-level goals for each of them, not going to be spending the time going through all of the strategies. I hope at this point you've had the opportunity to read through those and provide us comment on both the goals and the strategies for the document. So on to climate resiliency and adaptation. Of course, climate change is a defining issue of our time. As city agencies, we must collaborate with communities and each other in new ways to advance equitable, inclusive, and holistic responses to climate change. Key areas of focus include expanding climate risk awareness and action, using climate risk information in public policies and investments, supporting the housing needs of waterfront residents, managing flood risk in coastal communities, and promoting climate resilient build and design of buildings and infrastructure. Next slide, please, Chris. And so here are the 5, again, high-level goals for climate resiliency and adaptation. 1, expanding the awareness of climate risk and understanding of actions that New Yorkers living and working on the waterfront can take to adapt to the impacts of climate change. 2, applying an understanding of the systemic risk to guide land use policies and infrastructure investments that support a thriving urban coastal floodplain. 3, preserve and create new housing for a mix of incomes in appropriate locations and provide waterfront residents with new resources to manage flood impacts on their homes. Number 4, identify additional opportunities for coastal protection where feasible and practicable to manage the impacts of coastal storm surge and chronic high-risk flooding, high-tide flooding, excuse me. Expand resilient design practices that enable waterfront buildings and infrastructure to withstand the impacts of climate risks like coastal storms, increased precipitation, extreme heat, and sea level rise. Next slide. Onto waterfront public access. Our waterfront will continue to be a place where New Yorkers and visitors alike recreate and explore world-class parks and open space. At the same time, the city will invest in strategies to expand physical and in-water access where limited or obstructed and connect underserved communities with their waterfronts. Next slide, please, Chris. Here we have 4 goals. First is expanding public access to the waterfront, ensuring elements of design and programming of public waterfront open spaces reflecting the public use needs, promoting the stewardship of public spaces on the waterfront, and number 4, promoting opportunities to get onto and into the water. Next slide, please. On economic opportunity, while the waterfront is not the same kind of economic engine that it was to the city 100 years ago, it will play a crucial role in the city's ability to catalyze the green economy, sustain and create diverse mix of jobs, host key infrastructure, and support tourism for the next 10 years and beyond, all the more important as we climb out of the recession due to the COVID pandemic. Next slide, please. And the goals here. Number 1, promoting job-generating uses on the waterfront to drive economic recovery, diversify the city's economy, and provide renewable energy. Number 2, connecting the city's economic development investments on the waterfront to employment and career advancement opportunities for New Yorkers. Number 3, advance categories of investments in the waterfront areas that broadly support economic activity locally and throughout the region. Number 4, promote commercial boating and expand recreational and educational opportunities to help stimulate the city's economy. Next slide, please. Onto the working waterfront. New York City's working waterfront and waterways are vital elements of the city's economic engine, connecting New York City to the domestic and international supply chain and providing well-paying jobs for New Yorkers. Continuing to invest in the working waterfront and remain attuned to the needs of the maritime economy will ensure that the port is ready for the evolving challenges of the 21st century, from rising sea levels to changing patterns of consumer behavior. Next slide. Here we have the following 4 goals. Advocate for a 21st century working waterfront. 2, investing in critical infrastructure to strengthen day-to-day operations of the working waterfront. 3, expand the capacity of the working waterfront for emergency management. And number 4, advancing programmatic, operational, and capital needs to promote marine and rail solutions to reduce our reliance on trucking. Next slide, please, Chris. Onto water quality and natural resources. New York City will continue to build on its multi-billion-dollar investment in improving water quality through a suite of programs and policies, including updating rules on how stormwater is managed on new and redeveloped properties and implementing the nation's largest green infrastructure program throughout New York City. The city is committed to continuing to maintain and restore unique natural habitats and ecological diversity found in these spaces through robust planning and research, especially in the face of climate change. Next slide. We have the following 4 goals. Number 1, improve water quality by implementing planned programs and building upon key agency and public partner collaborations. Number 2, protect ecosystems, support ecosystem services, and enhance biodiversity of the natural waterfront. Number 3, help connect New Yorkers with waterfront ecology and raise awareness of water quality and habitat protection. And number 4, utilize new and existing data sources to assess natural resources and inform decision-making for restoration and protection. Next slide, please. And now on to ferries. For a city located on an archipelago, ferry service presents a unique local and regional transit opportunity. New York City will continue to explore ways to optimize service and fully realize the potential of our waterways as a critical component to the city's transportation network. Next slide. We have the following 4 goals. Optimize routes and increase service efficiency of the city ferry services. 2, expand New York City ferry service to planned routes, providing greater mobility to underserved neighborhoods. Number 3, strategically plan for expansion of ferry services within New York City and the region. And number 4, strengthen the role of ferry landings as hubs to neighborhoods and other forms of transportation. Next slide, please. So that was a very quick overview of the high-level goals. There's obviously a lot more detail in the draft goals and strategies, but didn't want to go into too much detail tonight because we really want to turn the floor to you. And so in just a moment, we'll be starting the comment portion of tonight where you will be given the opportunity to provide comment. So during the comment session, you will be able to provide comments by using the raise hand feature in Zoom. And you will be given a 3-minute time limit to speak. During those 3 minutes, you'll see the timer on the screen. In order for this to work, though, just so that you understand, I will announce your name when it's your turn to speak, and my colleagues will promote you to be a panelist. And when you are a panelist, your screen may blink for just a second, close out or reopen. And that will enable the features to allow you to turn on your camera and unmute yourself. If for some reason it does not reopen, please rejoin using the link provided at registration. If you are dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand, and you can unmute yourself when you are called on by me. Now, I want to make certain that, so we have a Q&A going right now, and I see there are a couple of questions in it. Brendan, if you could tell me if there are any questions about the run of show for this evening.
There is a comment about complimenting the calming sounds of the waves from Tatfan's video, which we all appreciate. There's also a question and comment about the meeting being recorded tonight and sharing out afterwards, sharing the link to the video afterwards.
Yes, we are recording this. We are recording it primarily for the purposes of our own note-taking, so that we have the ability to make certain that we get everyone's comments. I should say, in addition to speaking tonight, we encourage you to submit your comments online. That's waterfrontplan.nyc. One of my colleagues just put the link in the chat to the draft strategies, and also on that website, which is also now just being linked, you can also provide your written comments as well. As part of the final comprehensive waterfront plan, we will be providing a summary of what we've heard and our outreach, and that is, of course, to come. Now, Brendan, I just want to confirm we have no other.
One question about whether this will be the same format as Thursday's meeting.
Yes, thank you for the question. This is the exact same format of Thursday's meeting, where we'll start with the short presentation and then go into the comment period where each participant will have 3 minutes. I should say that we ask that you only speak once, to just given the number of attendees. We have some 80 people registered for this evening, so want to make sure that we have give everyone the opportunity to speak. Anything else, Brendan?
There's a specific comment about ferries, but I recommend that the person who asked that or made that comment or question include that as part of their 3 minutes of speaking time.
That's great. And so just to be clear one more time, that the intent tonight is for you to provide comments. It's not intended to be a debate or a discussion back and forth. So please do use your 3 minutes to provide us with comments. again, 3 minutes is not much time, and we want to make sure that you have that opportunity. So I think we're ready to go to it. With that, Chris, can you go to the next slide, the 3-minute timer? And, oh, sorry, go back just a couple more. I just want to make sure that we covered everything. Right, so if you are interested in speaking, please do raise your hand. When your name is called, you'll unmute yourself and you can start showing your screen. And throughout the event, if you have any questions about the run of show or how things are proceeding, please do type it in the Q&A. And if you have any technical issues, remember the help phone number on the bottom of the screen. And then finally, email waterfrontplan.nyc, sorry, Chris, waterfrontplan@planning.nyc.gov if you have any questions following the event or to include any additional comments or submit them directly through our website. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, now is the opportunity to provide comments on the comprehensive waterfront plan, the draft goals and strategies. I will just see who has their hand raised. Okay, it looks like Willis Elkins is our first speaker. Willis, please be ready to speak. And Alan, if you could unmute Willis.
Sure. Sorry, Michael. Actually, our first speaker is Laura Shepard.
Oh, I apologize. That's not the order in which it's showing up on my screen, but Alan, I'll let you handle the order, and then I'll just, you announce who's going to be the order, then it's different on my screen. So Laura, are you there? Laura, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. May I comment?
Great. Yes,
Okay.
go ahead, Laura.
Hi, so thank you for this opportunity. I want to reiterate some comments that were made during the public input sessions that didn't seem to make it into the draft. We asked for a reduction in parking minimums along the waterfront to discourage car and auto-centric infrastructure, because this both cuts off community access to the waterfront and its amenities and incentivizes driving, which contributes in turn to climate change, which is threatening our waterfront. In the draft plan, under the access section, I believe, 1.4.e, you mentioned some Greenway improvement. I'd like to add that we'd like the full East River waterfront Greenway completed, including the entirety of the Western Queens waterfront, from the Pulaski Bridge all the way around to the Flushing Marina, and along in northeastern Queens. There should be a connection from there via College Point and Whitestone to Little Bay Park, Fort Totten, upgrades to Joe Michaels Mile, and so forth, as well as reducing or figuring out where highway capacity can be reduced along Flushing Meadows Corona Park. Right now, the park is strangled on all sides by the Van Wyck, the Grand Central, even the BQE and the Whitestone Expressway. And this really cuts the communities off from the waterfront. So it would be simultaneously beneficial to prioritize walking and biking infrastructure and green space over these lanes. Also, we need upgrades to the Northern Boulevard Bridge over Flushing Creek. This is a real pinch point in the walking biking network. And as well as to the Queensboro Bridge and other bridges around the city. The Cross Bay and the Adabo bridges to Rockaway Beach need serious upgrades to make them walkable and bikeable safely. as does the Gil Hodges bridge between Brooklyn and Queens. So yeah, just would like to see some of those things explicitly stated, as well as the addition of more bathrooms and water fountains at strategic intervals for people walking along the waterfront. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. And
running out of time.
Very nice timing. If you want to take your 5 seconds.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Next, Tom, can you tell us who our next speaker is?
Our next speaker is Frank Avila Goldman.
Mr. Goldman?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for this. My comment really has more to do with a focus on the housing component. And I should just start by saying, as the speaker just said, I'm Frank Avila Goldman. I live on the Lower East Side on the waterfront, and I'm actually incredibly grateful that we're going to have 2 resiliency projects here, the BMCR and the ESCR, and I'm right between both of them. But nonetheless, I'm just asking or requesting for more clarification, because when I'm thinking about neighborhoods that have resiliency plans in the works, or maybe already maybe in planning, it's just not clear when it comes to managed retreat or housing mobility, if these resiliency plans are in effect going to be protecting our neighborhood. And I will just add to the concern of predominantly along the waterfront here and in many other communities in New York City. We're talking about low income or middle income communities, NYCHA as well. And so I just don't understand necessarily I can't pinpoint it on your draft goals and strategies, but there was a portion in just, the feasibility. And my question is just if that can be clarified. Oh, I think it was 2.3 C, where it says the limit future residential densities in waterfront areas where coastal risk through 2050s cannot be practically managed. I'm just a little bit concerned and suspect, and I'm thinking of my brothers and sisters out in the Rockaways, for example, in NYCHA housing over there, as just being obviously a hard hit area, but yet that area still seems to be developed. So I would just request maybe, again, more clarification on the definition of practically managed, as well as the understanding of how the city is going to be approaching upland communities so that it's not just a burden on those who live in vulnerable areas. Thank you.
Great, and thank you for your comments. Tom, who do we have next?
We have John Hank Lewis, followed by Lauren Nye, followed by Brad Vogel. So it's John Hank Lewis.
Mr. Lewis, please begin whenever you're ready. Mr. Lewis?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please begin.
Okay, first of all, I want to say and science-based, and it's if 10% of it could be accomplished, it's going to improve the life quality of thousands of people. I appreciate all your efforts. I have 2 comments that I think will make it better, and I just want to let you know what those 2 comments are. One is on the waterfront public access, goal 4.1, and then 4.1A, it says, continue to expand and improve the New York City water trail for human-powered boating with an emphasis on areas lacking formal blah, blah. My concern is that human-powered boating specifically excludes stand-up paddleboarding, which is a large and growing aspect of human-powered watercraft. My suggestion is to replace the term human-powered boating with the more inclusive human-powered watercraft, i.e. kayaks and stand-up paddleboards. I think our goal is to be inclusive, and so that's my suggestion. The second one is on water quality and natural resources. Goal 3, help connect New Yorkers with waterfront ecology and raise awareness of water quality and habitat protection. My concern is that failure to mention specifically community-based efforts to maintain, clean up, and remove plastic and garbage from shorelines diminishes the importance of these efforts and fails to promote them. So my suggestion is to add to that goal number 3, support and commend community-based efforts to maintain, clean up, remove plastics and garbage from the New York City shorelines. So that's it, and I appreciate all the work that you've done so far.
Thank you. Tom, who do we have next?
The next speaker is Laura Nye, followed by Brad Vogel, followed by Willis Elkins.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Laura Nye, when you're ready, please begin.
Hi, thanks for having me and thanks for the draft plan. Let me try and collect my thoughts. So lifelong Bronx resident from City Island. I've spoken at multiple of these hearings. I have an MPA from CUNY Brook, and I've specifically focused on ferry transportation and thinking about how we could use it as an economic engine for the city. I think you hit a lot of great points where I feel like you miss one of the biggest things in the economic opportunity goals. You don't connect it, for example, in goal 2 to the to ferry. So specifically stating like that you're going to create or expand training leading to the ferry jobs and ferry repair jobs. I want us to think about the ferry repair jobs, especially thinking about like you have the one hub now in Brooklyn, but what about if you expanded it to say City Island, which you guys have designated as a special purpose district. And then the other flag I wanna, or tie that I wanna make is the Hart Island Ferry. Generally, there's no goal in this to connect the, DCP's or not DOT's management of a sector of the ferries and then EDC's control of it. I'm not sure why these two are separate, but that should be addressed in the goals, either to like connect the agencies more so on how you're operating the system or something to that effect. Let's see. Waterfront public access in part 3, you could more explicitly state what it looks like when the city is the owner. So for example, in 3-1, you include or could include something to the effect of prioritize and support CBOs to take control management over public waterfront land. So how I see this as an issue coming up in City Island, there is public land right over the bridge. City and state have spent billions of dollars on this new structure. There's a whole bunch of construction management tools, et cetera, on the site. And there's a CBO who's looking to take it over and has been for at least the past 2 decades. So I feel like there's definitely more to be said here to ground it in like what exactly it looks like when the city controls land and there's an opportunity, there's a CBO who wants to be doing it, who wants to be controlling and providing waterfront access to people. Let's see. I think those are my main ones. I guess for the working waterfront, you talk about literacy for the general public. It might also be good for you guys, again, to include some kind of literacy specifically for other city agencies. There's definitely more that you guys can be doing to collaborate with other city agencies to make sure the job training tracks are leading to the economic opportunities that you're trying to create. So make sure the ferry to Hart Island is connected with the other ferry systems. Try and be more specific about how you're being equitable and making sure that you have limited resources and they're being allocated to people who have been marginalized. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to remind everyone that if you are interested in providing comment this evening, if you want to have your 3 minutes, please do use the raised hand feature in Zoom. Tom, who do we have next?
We have Brad Vogel, followed by Willis Elkins, followed by Louis Kleinman.
Whenever you're ready. Brad.
Thank you. Yes, this is Brad Vogel. Hopefully you can hear and see me. I am currently actually aboard a sail freight vessel, the schooner Apollonia, and that's the gist of one of my main comments on the draft is I do think that the draft, as much as it speaks to the effort to move truck traffic off of our roadways in the city and move them onto the waterway, we could go one step further in helping with that overall emphasis by specifically calling out in the plan a need to move to more sustainable means of transit like sail freight or solar powered vessels, which are both real. There were 2 sail freight vessels unloading cargo in New York Harbor within the past week, including this one. So I do think that needs to specifically be called, especially when called out when we have places like the Port of Vancouver that are specifically making provision to incentivize sustainable forms of cargo transit in harbors. That is my chief comment on this. I really am glad to see a strong emphasis in the plan on actual access to the water, not just visual access or proximity access. And to the extent that it can even be strengthened further, that would be wonderful. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Just a reminder, if you are interested in speaking, please do raise your hand using the Zoom button. And Tom, who do we have next?
The next speaker is Willis Elkins, followed by Louis Kleinman.
Very good. Willis, whenever you're ready, please begin.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Michael, and Tom, good to hear your voice as well. So it's great reading through the report. One sort of comment I wanted to make was about, and maybe this is outside the scope of the plan, but the mechanisms for, I don't know if enforcement is the right word, but how we ensure that these goals are realized. And specifically, I'm thinking about, 2 situations we've seen on the Queens side of Newtown Creek in the past 10 years. One, which is happening right now, where there is, as mentioned in the plan, identify city-owned property and prioritize that for creating real public access. And the end of Vernon Boulevard has been an opportunity. There's been 20 years of community planning around the street end to create access, environmental improvement, and connect the community with the waterway. And the city has completely failed to make that happen in their current plan. And so, despite all the best efforts and language and guidelines, what can we do? What can this plan do at the end of the day to change that situation so that agencies like DOT or EDC actually have to abide by not just what the community wants, but what city planning is suggesting as well. And the other is another city-owned property as well that was in the back, is in Maspeth in the back of the creek, where city planning, per their own guidelines, recommended or insisted that there be public access. And the agency went around city planning and got that taken off the table. And the community still has no access to that entire side of Newtown Creek. So again, this is maybe bigger than the scope of what we're talking about, but the language is great in many places in this document, but without real mechanisms to make this stuff happen, I worry that we're going to end up with the same situation that we've seen here in Newtown Creek with these, what should be public access points along the waterway and city-owned property. The other point, we've talked about this a bit, was about how to incentivize and create access along private properties that are not seeing a change of use. Again, places like Newtown Creek, where there's unlikely to be rezonings or change of use of some of these industrial manufacturing zones. But there are places where these property owners have no intention of using their shoreline for ecological, public access, anything that is really beneficial to a lot of the goals that are stated in this report. So I appreciate that it's acknowledged there. I do think it needs to go a little bit further in terms of actually describing what those incentives might be, or ways that we can advance that conversation beyond just saying, let's look at these, look at this as an opportunity. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this and putting the report together. Thank you.
Thank you, Willis. Tom, who do we have next? And before we actually begin, just want to remind everyone, if you are interested in speaking, we obviously have a lot more folks in the session this evening that have spoken. So if you are interested in speaking, please do use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And Tom, who do we have next?
Good to hear your voice too, Will. The next speaker is Louis Kleinman, followed by Karen. I'm sorry if I mispronounced this. Imas.
Great. Louis, whenever you're ready, please begin. Louis, whenever you're ready, please begin.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Let me take off the video. It's a bad picture. I just wanted to thank you all for being very open and community minded in doing this. I can remember when everything was once upon a time taken in secret. So this is such a change from what it started its life off back in the 60s. I'm going to talk about a couple of general things, some of which have already been touched upon by some of the people who I know. Number one of the goals should be in the waterfront plan that we don't contribute to gentrification. That has happened quite often with ferries. Ferries are not really servicing the communities who really could use it the most. I would like to see something done so that ferries are not just in high
Louis, I think we lost your audio.
Really?
Oh, keep going. Hear you.
All right. In other words, ferries should be earmarked for those people who could use it the most and not just put into gentrifying areas. The comprehensive waterfront plan itself should have an overall goal of being coordinated with all of the other goals and plans of the other city agencies. It shouldn't just be its own silo. We should be able to coordinate this with the plans for EDC, with the plans for DOT. Every agency seems to have its own particular program, and this should be something that should be taken in an overall meaningful manner with all of the rest of the city agencies. What we don't also have is an overall overarching goal for the use of the waterways themselves. There's a big call for energy uses on our waterway. There's a big call for promoting freight, for promoting ferries. We should see a plan, generally speaking, that takes all of these issues and itemizes what we should be expecting for our waterways itself in the next 20 or 30 years. I'd like to see something that definitively puts in job training with local employment opportunities as we build out the waterfront plan, and I think that should be part of the waterfront plan itself. And finally, I would like QIP to have something said about the water quality reclassifications of our rivers and streams. New York State does it, but what's the point of not having a decent water quality classification? So I thank you guys, and I look forward to hearing more.
Great. Thank you, Louis. As a reminder, if you're interested in speaking, please use the raise hand feature. Our queue is actually getting quite short now. So please, if you are interested in speaking, do use the raise hand feature. And Tom, who do we have next?
Our next speaker is Karen Imas.
Karen, whenever you're ready to begin.
Hey, everyone. Good to be with you. And thank you for holding this hearing. Karen Imas, providing a couple of comments on behalf of Waterfront Alliance and the Rise to Resilience Coalition. And we'll be submitting fuller remarks via the online comment submission, but wanted to just give a couple of highlights and sneak previews of what the Waterfront Alliance and Rise to Resilience Coalition are thinking about First, really just want to thank City Planning for the big effort and the big undertaking that this is. We worked together on a few topical forums last year, and we're really heartened to see a lot of the input that the public gave at those forums reflected in the draft goals and strategies. I think a couple of highlights that we're thinking about are, and this was mentioned, really thinking about metrics, timeframes to measure progress or to encourage adoption of the comprehensive waterfront plan over the next 10 years, especially as a new mayoral administration comes in. The plan has never, at least I don't believe, has included targets or plans for revisiting where things are at in the actual plan. So even getting creative and thinking about, could there be a progress report card every 2 years, or could public workshops be held again at the halfway mark, really just assessing how things are going. In terms of the plan itself, we're heartened to see the mention of the Mayor's Office of Climate Resiliency's Climate Adaptation Roadmap, and really encourage honing in on that and expediting the work around that. We'd like to see more emphasis on ZCFR and the city's climate design guidelines, and taking it to the next level to create a model for private developers that incentivizes resilient designs, looking at things like loans, grants, expedited permitting review. On public access, this has been mentioned, wayfinding and Greenway connectivity, prioritizing communities with major gaps along their greenways. Also really interested in studying city-owned waterfront properties, conducting assessments and how they're being used, and the viability for activation. There's certainly sites that we all hear about often that are actually being used for fishing or kayaking or other activities, but that are not actually open, accessible waterfront sites. They are city-owned properties. I think this was also mentioned, workforce training, really supporting the development of things like home resiliency retrofit programs and workforce training. Emerging sectors like offshore wind should also be targets for workforce training. We're looking a lot at sites around, kind of encouraging freight NYC initiatives. This was mentioned earlier regarding the schooner Apollonia. So honing in on that a little bit more, and maybe even highlighting some geography like Newtown Creek, Gowanus, the Harlem River, for example, that would be primed for that kind of cargo movement. I know I have a couple of seconds left, but I want to hit the point on rezoning to protect wetlands. Although significant wetlands are preserved in the city park systems, there's a lot still in private hands, and we really need to expand the protection of pathways for wetlands to migrate as sea levels rise. This is critical. And my last point, if I could just get 5 more seconds, is on the ferry. So the ferry, there's so much possibility around the ferry. This was mentioned by another speaker in terms of economic development. We should be looking at committing to piloting an electric ferry, not just to Hart Island, but on the passenger routes. We should be looking at how to incorporate ferries within the MTA and new ticketing and revenue structures that make it financially viable over the long haul. And I'll just add another piece on our maritime sector, and that's our harbor cruise sector, not to be overlooked. The city has NYC and Co. The city is reopening. We need to make the harbor cruise sector, although small but mighty, an important piece of our city's tourism, economic recovery, but also something for New Yorkers to enjoy. So I know there's a lot there. We'll be fleshing this out in our comments, and really thank you for holding this forum today.
Thank you, Karen. All right. Once again, reminder, if you are interested in speaking, please do use the raise hand feature. Tom, who do we have next?
We have Mary Jo Burke, followed by Carter Kraft.
Ms. Burke, whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Please begin.
I have this is the first introduction to your project, so I'm speaking sort of from an uninformed position, but I live on the East River, so I'm curious to get into your draft proposals in terms of resiliency because of the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project and its impact on the neighborhood. But my question really, or my comment, is about tidal energy, and if that's being investigated in terms of the renewable energy in the projects that you're talking about, because looking at the East River, there's so much energy potential there, and I don't know if tidal energy is being investigated. So that's my main comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, who do
Our
we have
next speaker is Carter Kraft, followed by Margaret Flanagan.
Carter, whenever you're ready, please begin.
Great, thank you. Hi, Carter Kraft here. Water enthusiast and big fan of everything the department has been doing for all these years. So thank you, Michael and team, for keeping these conversations public and transparent and forward thinking. I have three comments, one in sort of an economic perspective, one a spatial perspective, and one a little bit of a human perspective. In the economic perspective, I hope the city can do more with water technology and really looking at the water tech sector as a place and an economic base that can grow. Tapping into the R&D that's happening at the universities, looking at the applications that can be made to happen on our abundant and ambient waterways here. In my work at the Netherlands Consulate, we see a lot of focus in the state of Maine on water tech. We see a lot of focus in the state of Massachusetts on water tech. We see a lot in the Chesapeake Bay, but we don't see so much focus in and around New York City as we would hope to, especially given the abundance of people. Second thing, spatial aspect. You know, there's a huge opportunity and a huge need in that whole space between the bottom of the river and creeks and canals and the surface, that whole water column. And what's the most we can do with the water column to get the microplastics out, to make it a source of more diverse and rich marine life, to build on the living breakwaters by Scape and the Billion Oyster Project off Staten Island, all the great work that advocates and stewards like Bart Cheser have been doing with eelgrass, et cetera. So kind of a spatial focus on the water column, I think, is something we should all be talking more about. And then the third, just the human aspect. Obviously, the shellfish beds were closed a long time ago, but we're in an era and in a place where the need for food security is greater and greater every year. And what can our waterways do for us? Whether it's seaweed, whether it's shellfish, whether it's sustainable fishing. We've got beaches, we've got bays. Obviously, we've got fishing regulations, Department of Health regulations, and we don't want to fish for sustenance in all these places. But what can we do proactively to look at our waterways as part of our more sustainable food supply infrastructure, so that as we plan ahead and realize, cleaner water, especially looking ahead next year to the 50th anniversary of the Federal Clean Water Act, what a great statement it would be to come up with a plan that embraces more active use and stewardship of our waterways for improved food security. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Great. Thank you, Carter. Tom, who do we have next?
Our next speaker is Margaret Flanagan.
Maggie, whenever you're ready, please begin.
And thank you and hello, everyone. I really appreciate the chance to hear about all the great work that's been going on in waterfront planning and to join colleagues here with so many great ideas. My name is Margaret Flanagan, and I'm also joining as a waterfront enthusiast. And I was very excited to see some components of the plan, starting with the climate section, really linking land use to what might be systemic issues in climate. And also in the public access section, goal 2.3 about public facilities, where so many folks have been advocating for restrooms and water fountains. It's well captured there. And thank you so much. Of course, we all know that includes investments in infrastructure, and that's an area I think might be strengthened in some of the other goal areas of the report. Truly basic infrastructure such as the pipes and the electric grid are key to enabling some of these great ideas. Even when we talk about workforce, those jobs, are need to be there as well throughout the trades. And then with both the working waterfront and with ferries, it's great that the report acknowledges alternative fuels, but truly how the gangways are connected, how the lines are run, how the power is there, how the water is there is really going to have to be rethunk in order to have sustainable waterfronts of the future. And it's great that the water quality section acknowledges CSOs, and I wonder if it might be considered to take it farther and to actually have the report call to limit new CSO discharges, in addition to reducing what we have. If there's more housing being built on the waterfront, the overall problem may still get worse. So thank you for considering all of our suggestions, and we really look forward to all the benefits of the great report.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your comments. That is currently our last speaker who has raised their hand. Do encourage you once again, if you are interested in speaking this evening, please do use the raise hand feature in Zoom so that we can unmute you and you could share your thoughts. Of course, if you prefer to submit your comments in writing, you are welcome to do so as well. You go to waterfrontplan.nyc. That's the waterfrontplan.nyc is the website where you can submit your comments that way. It looks like we just got one new hand up, but please others, if you are interested, we have some 40 some odd people on the Zoom right now, heard from about a dozen. So if there are others, we do encourage you just to use the raise hand feature. Tom, who do we have next?
Pardon if I mispronounced your last name. Andrea Hangi.
Please begin whenever you're ready, and do correct us with the pronunciation of your name, please.
Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Hanke, and here is actually our drifted, thick Marsha bladder seaweed. We both appreciate to be here and have this opportunity to speak. The seaweed experts and me, Andrea Hanke from the EPA. I would like to acknowledge you have in your comprehensive water plan that after the first image, it says a blank page. It says the page intentionally left blank. I would acknowledge at that moment to acknowledge where we are standing. If you talking in this plant about environmental justice, racial justice, if we want to change and look further and improve the well-being for everybody, we have to acknowledge what is our history. What is the ground you are on? I'm here on Garnarcy, Brooklyn, on Lenapehoking land. Where are your feet? If we're not starting to know what other knowledges exist, yes, science is great, and as you mentioned, but to not acknowledge in this whole plan the traditional knowledge as well, we're missing the opportunity between relationship. As we all sitting in here right now, our bacterium in our stomach, and maybe some of you actually ate seaweed. We know seaweed as an example, as he told me, as it's in every waterfront on both water sides. Even on the East River Park, Waterfront Park, and there where it's more a wall, seaweed attaches to it. And it's already cleaning the waterfront. So it needs both and acknowledge where we are. And with that, I would also say, what means community? Just as the ECR plan will not recognize that the park in itself, the waterfront park in itself is as well a protector and resilience. And it would acknowledge and really recognize and look through it. And I will look more and give very specific comments where you could really change this in your plan. To only just say save wetlands and not saving parks that are 8 years or longer, who know how to handle storms, is actually, again, a violent act that already happened 400 years ago, as an example at that park at Corliss Hook. I thanks for listening, and I'm looking more forward we both to communicate together.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. At the moment, it does not appear that we have anyone else left in the queue. I do encourage you, if you are interested in speaking this evening, to use your raise hand feature in Zoom. Once again, if you are interested in providing comments, written comments, you can go to our website, waterfrontplan.nyc, and provide your comments through the online forms. Additionally, if you want to speak at Thursday's meeting, it will be the same run of show as tonight. So you'll have another opportunity to speak on Thursday if you are so inclined. Once again, please do raise your hand feature if you have the desire to speak this evening. We'll just give it another minute. Oh, we have one more speaker. Tom, can you call out who it is?
Our next speaker is Peter Sampton.
Mr. Sampton, please begin when you're ready. Mr. Sampton, please begin when you're ready.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay. All this is well and good, but what about the waterfront 50 years from now? With the climate change, many of us could foresee that the rising waters are going to affect the entire New York Harbor. I live I have a house out in Fire Island on the water, and I've seen the water rise in the last 30 years, some 4 or 5 inches, which is a lot. Many of you remember in 2012, what happened to Staten Island and Lower Manhattan. So I think everything you've done and the speakers to this point have made sense, but I hear very little about the future of the waterfront. I think that's very critical that city planning begin to plan for 50 and 100 years from now. I can foresee handling the New York waterfront much like the Dutch have done in Delft. Creating dams at certain areas to prevent, or locks, if you will, to prevent the rising water, both coming down the Hudson River and coming in from the Atlantic Ocean. So I urge you at City Planning to really look to the future. Many of you may not remember because I'm much older than you, but in 1970, Mayor Lindsay developed a plan for the 5 boroughs that looked very much into the future. And these great books were put together and distributed to communities and to architects and planners. And I think we need city planning to begin to look at a vision that is not for the next 5 or 10 years, but for 50 and 100 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. If anyone else would like to speak tonight, you could use the raise hand feature to jump in, because right now we don't have any speakers currently in the queue. So, oh, well, it looks like we have one more speaker. I keep on saying this, and one person continues to join, which is great. Again, everyone else, if you are still interested, it looks like we still have about 30 some odd attendees. So if you're interested in speaking, please do use the raise hand feature. And Tom, who do we have next?
Our next speaker is Michael McGurk.
Michael, whenever you're ready, please begin.
Hello. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for putting this all together. This organization and the waterfront development plan really presents a lot of great economic opportunity as well as responsible development that we need for the 21st century. I run a nonprofit organization here, Bliss Factory, and we started just before the pandemic. And I see so much opportunity in this that a lot of other development organizations don't present to New Yorkers. So I think here we have a way to transform New York and make something that this city can really be proud of. I just wanted to bring up different types of industries and how certain industries are becoming legacy industries. And I'm just presenting this question is how will New York City protect certain industrialized areas and make that accessible for the public and for the people? How are we going to stop overdevelopment of the water that's irresponsible? And that either could mean through acquisition of land or protecting that land. But yeah, just wanted to thank everybody for the work here.
Thank you, Mr. McGurk. Appreciate the comments. If anyone else is interested in speaking, please do use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Once again, if you would like to submit your comments in writing, you are welcome to do so as well. Go to our website, waterfrontplan.nyc, or if you would like to join us on Thursday, that will be another opportunity to do so. Thursday evening, you will need to register for that event. It's a separate registration. But it does not appear that we have any additional speakers currently in the queue. Tom, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, we'll give it just another moment in case anyone is having a hard time finding the raise hand feature. Want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to properly take the opportunity to provide comment. If you are unable to, for some reason, find the raise hand feature, but you do want to submit comments, or do you want to speak tonight, please just type it into the Q&A if need be. If you're having a hard time on the raised hand. Oh, do we have someone on raised hand? No, I'm sorry, that's the chat. Okay. Well, I do want to thank all of you this evening. It looks like no one else is coming forward to speak this evening. So I do want to thank all of you for the opportunity to hear from you. That's obviously an incredibly important part of the planning process, is this public outreach and engagement, something that we take very seriously. I think that you've seen it thus far in the draft of the goals and strategies. And if you've been following along, you'll see how the public, comments from our earlier sessions and earlier phases of the work have made it into the draft goals and strategies. And so we do take this seriously, and we appreciate you spending the past hour and 15 minutes or so with us. Once again, thank you very much. Please, if you are interested in providing comments going forward, please do go to our website, waterfrontplan.nyc.gov. And we very much appreciate you working with us this evening. I believe that's everything for this evening. So I thank you. And once again, we are appreciative of your time and consideration. Everyone have a very good night, and look forward to